Hello, everyone, and many thanks for joining today's stream. Today is, of course, 1st of August. Time is flying fast, isn't it? It's already August, so it's 1st. Now it's 11 o'clock in the morning, Moscow time, and I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments, and hopefully you will find the news segment of this stream interesting and informative. And if so, dear friends, please, if you can, click the like button and leave some commentary in the comment section after the stream. More likes and comments will definitely help her, I think, to deal with extremely aggressive algorithm. So if it's not too inconvenient, please like the video and leave some commentary. After a new segment, of course, as always, I will join community chatter and will react on number of okay. There is issues with the sound. Emily is telling me right now, and I have no idea why. Ань, is there issues with sound again? No. Okay, then I will continue. So, okay, sound is good. Nathan is commenting. Thank you, Nathan. So, yes, dear friends, after the news segment, I will join community chat and will react on a number of comments or the questions, as I always do. And what else? Tomorrow is Saturday, isn't it, dear friends? So happy Friday. And tomorrow, live stream probably will be at late time, maybe 3 p.m. I think so. And on Sunday, we will have a traditional bigger community chat fundraising stream. Hopefully, many members of our community will join that stream too. Okay, that's been said, dear friends. I will just remind you that yesterday, later evening, or I should say early this morning, actually, I published a video of yesterday's second news update, walk and talk type of video. News segment was published, news part of it was published on YouTube and Rumble, also on Patreon and Boosting. I shared the links there, and part of night life of Vladikavkaz was published exclusively for Patreon and Boosty. And in case you are not a member of our community on Patreon and Boosty, please consider to join our communities there. This way you will have access to whatever extra content I do on those platforms, and at the same time you will support my work, and of course that will make it much easier to maintain this program. Anyways, let's start now. News segment itself. Lot to unpack. Lot is happening, dear friends, and I'm going to start with this report from RIA Novosti that U.S. clarified Trump's words about their deal on Ukraine. So U.S. President Donald Trump wants to reach a settlement to the conflict in Ukraine by August 8. Reuters reports, citing the words of Deputy U.S. Permanent Representative to the UN, John Kelly. We have quote here, both Russia and Ukraine must agree to a ceasefire and a lasting peace. It's time to make a deal. President Trump has made it clear that this must be done by August 8. And I want to focus your attention, dear friends, on a date, August 8. I don't think this is some random stuff, because if you remember, it was August 8. It was a late time of August 7, but in Russia at the time was already, due to time difference, already 8th of August in 2008, when Western-controlled regime of Saakashvili in Georgia reignite civil war in the country and attack at the time breakaway region of South Ossetia, and day after, Saakashvili authorized or give order to Georgian troops to open fire against Russian peacekeepers. Significant number of peacekeepers as a result of this was killed and wounded, and obviously President of the Russian Federation at the time, Dmitry Medvedev, don't really had much choice to react on this act of war that was committed by Saakashvili's regime, and rest is history. That did go down on pages, history books, as a August 5-day war, right? And if you remember, Trump's ultimatum initially was 50 days, right? Then he was mumbling about 10, 12 days. Then he clarified that it's 10 days, and somehow these 10 days end up on 8th of August. And I think this is a kind of a message that Western globalists and neocons want to send to Moscow, that they are ready for revanche for August 8, 2008. This is my interpretation, by the way. I don't think this date of 8th of August is random stuff. And I think many people who remembers what was happening in 2008 had their similar associations, right? But nevertheless, when it comes to this demand of Trump to agree on a ceasefire by 8th of August, obviously we all understand that this is just an empty demand. Trump and his administration knows perfectly well that this cannot be done. Moscow's position was and is very clear that Russia is not interested in some temporary solutions. Moscow is seeking a complete resolution for this conflict, which will require root causes to be addressed. And it seems like collective West is not ready for actual resolution of this conflict. They only seek a temporary ceasefire to give some break to their desperate proxies that are experiencing significant setbacks literally on daily basis, right? That's all it is. And also, obviously, this sort of ultimatum from the Trump will be used by collective West then to justify whatever military hostilities they're gonna come up with. And they will, by the way. They will. Of course, Trump, other politicians or public figures in the West are talking about, in regards to this ultimatum, solely about tariffs and the sanctions and so on. But in reality, I said in my previous updates that in reality, collective West is planning to escalate after this ultimatum hostility against Russia to unprecedented level. And my hope is that we are ready. I mean Russia. And we are ready, by the way. We are ready, and depend on the scale of this escalation, reaction or countermeasures of the Russian side will be determined. And if collective West, under leadership of US, let's say, will go ahead with their massive, large-scale drone and missile strikes deep into Russian territory, including towards Moscow and St. Petersburg, which should be expected. And simultaneously, if collective West countries in upcoming days will already start sabotaging life here inside the Russia, will all sorts of distractions and they have enough, I'm afraid, assets on Russian territory to actually conduct this large-scale sabotage activity on Russian territory. So if scale will be really unprecedented, then Moscow most likely will have no option but to retaliate not just on military and logistical infrastructure of this Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky, but on the military facilities, military assets, let's say, of countries that will be directly involved in this escalation. That is, first of all, US, UK, France, Germany, right? So world should be ready. it well might be that we are only 7 days away from hot phase of the World War III. Just saying. And well, when it comes to Trump, dear friends, he once again commented on Russia, and I think it will be better if I will just give you a video of short video of his statement. You'll be the judge of what he's talking about here.
Russia, I think it's disgusting what they're doing. I think it's disgusting. This is Biden's war. It's not my war. But I said if I get in, I'll try and get the thing stopped. But I think what Russia's doing is very sad. A lot of Russians are dying. You have a lot of Russians, more Russians are dying. But Russians are dying, Ukrainians are dying. The United States isn't really involved in that war. It shouldn't be. And by the way, I made a deal with NATO where NATO pays us for everything that we send. We send them ammunition, missiles, etc. And we're not paying anything for that war. But I will tell you this, it should be stopped. It's a disgrace. And the ones that are dying are they're losing 7,000 now. It was 5,000. They're losing now 7,000 soldiers a week, Ukrainian soldiers and Russian soldiers. And they're also losing people now in the towns and cities because Putin's hitting them with rockets. No, I think it's disgraceful. Yeah, we have about 8 days. So yeah, we're going to put sanctions. I don't know that sanctions bother him. They know about sanctions. I know better than anybody about sanctions and tariffs and everything else. I don't know if that has any effect, but we're going to do it. Europe is extremely upset. But this is a war that should have never happened. This is a war that wouldn't have happened if I were president. And this is Biden's war. This was a stupid war to get into. Should have never gotten into this war. Yeah, going to Israel, and then he's going to Russia, believe it or not.
Okay, you have seen what Trump is talking about. His language, by the way, is topical for another discussion. This is not the way how president of any country should communicate, and probably we will all agree on that. But yet again, that's the reality that we all have to face. Same time, you see what Trump is saying there, that he is basically not just not sure, but it's exactly the opposite. He knows perfectly well that these sanctions or secondary tariffs or whatever are not going to influence really decision-making process in Moscow. He knows this, right? He says it openly, and by doing so, he's kind of hinting, maybe unwillingly, that after this ultimatum will expire, US and other NATO member states will go ahead with their provocations, with military provocations on unprecedented scale. That's their plan. They are not that stupid not to realize that with sanctions, they're not going to really pressure Russia any more than they already did with their 30,000 plus sanctions, right? That is imposed on our country. So, share your opinion, dear friends, what you are making out of it. Also, Trump hinted that his special envoy Witkov will visit Israel. I believe he is already in Middle East, and then allegedly he will come to Russia. Okay, let's give a chance to a diplomacy, but I don't think it will work. It's just too late now. Trump definitely had the opportunity to seek de-escalation in Russia. All he had to do is to acknowledge that U.S. was run by globalists and globalist assets during the Biden's administration. This proxy war that West is waging against Russia is not in interest of the U.S. Or people of United States, which is true, by the way, if you think about it. And he had to agree after that on concessions before Russia for all the crimes and damages that U.S. has committed and were involved as a result of its involvement in this proxy war, and then pull out country from this proxy war. After that, I think Moscow and Washington would actually find common ground to de-escalate, but Trump chose other path. He's operating now with tremendously hostile language and the policies towards Russia. And I'm telling you, we might well be 7 days away from hot phase of direct conflict between NATO and Russia. And this is all due to criminals that are in charge of the collective West countries, including United States, by the way. My personal take on that, share your opinion, dear friends. Would you agree with me or not? But that's what I think. This is crazy stuff that is happening. And dear friends, I can see now that 152 members of our community are watching this stream on YouTube, and we can actually double or even triple live audience if you can share a link to this video, by the way, with your friends through social network. That will be great help for me and to this media project. So if you can, please consider to share the video. Okay, there was a donation on a PayPal with the comments, and let me, dear friends, share right now. Nathan, thank you very much for your donation, $20 donation on a PayPal. Comment is, thanks, Levan, for your consistent work. We all appreciate your effort. Thank you very much, Nathan. I appreciate your support, Nathan. I appreciate your support and kind words. Thank you. And dear friends, there was also a donation from Robert. Wow. Wow. There is donation from Robert. Thank you very much, Robert, for your very generous donation of $123. Originally, it was more, I guess, but PayPal did talk some percentage. Thank you very much for your generous donation. And the comment from Robert is, Trump is a madman. World War III is coming. Russia should be prepared. And well, thank you very much, Robert, for your comment. And I'm afraid we are very close. We are really, really very close to a hot phase of direct clashes between Russia and NATO, because we all see, dear friends, they are not intent to de-escalate. Leadership of collective West countries, leadership of US, which is a leading country in this anti-Russian coalition and in this proxy war against Russia, they are not even considering the escalations. They are doing exactly the opposite, increasing hostility, which is counterproductive. But yet again, I mean, we understand that due to these developments, situation is extremely dangerous, right, for everybody. But I guess we are tiny minority because otherwise they should be massive demonstrations, isn't it? Massive demonstrations all over, especially all over the Western world, with demands to de-escalate. Because if people in US, for example, if majority of society in US or in UK or in Germany or in France or Italy or other countries, by the way, did knew how close we are to a hot phase of direct clashes between NATO and Russia, I think people would protest. People would demand from their elites, their political class, to de-escalate, but they have no idea, by the way. All they hear from Western MSM is Russia is weaker, West will decimate Russia, Russia is already losing, and that kind of crap and nonsense, right? And seems like public in the West don't really worries about these developments, which is tragic, really, which is just tragic, man. I have no words about what else to say about it. Well, let's continue, dear friends. As I said, a lot to unpack, and let me give you this report also from RIA Novosti that I already mentioned, that Trump revealed that Witkoff plans to visit Russia. Yet again, let's give a chance to diplomacy. Maybe something positive will come out of Witkoff's visit here in Russia, but based on statements that Trump himself is making, based on statements that Trump's allies are making from Washington, it is very difficult to be optimistic, isn't it? It is really difficult to be optimistic. And at this point, one might even argue that it's not a matter of if there will be direct clashes between NATO and Russian forces. It's a matter of when this will happen, and it's a matter of scale on which these clashes will happen. Very unfortunate, but I mean, it is what it is, isn't it? And well, press spokesman of the U.S. President Donald Trump, Caroline Leavitt, is making headlines also to her statements. And yet again, it's better to give you to listen what she has to say, and you be the judge.
Now ended conflicts between Thailand and Cambodia, Israel and Iran, Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, India and Pakistan, Serbia and Kosovo, and Egypt and Ethiopia. This means President Trump has brokered, on average, about one peace deal or ceasefire per month during his 6 months in office. It's well past time that President Trump was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. The president...
I mean, do I have to comment on this, dear friends? It's insane, isn't it? It's insane, and they're extremely dangerous that people like this are at least formally representing a major nuclear superpower in this world that US is, right? People are lying straight to our faces, by the way, and have no shame to do so. I don't know what Lewitt is coming from, but as far as I know, India's leadership stated there on numerous occasions that Trump had nothing to do with the de-escalation that had happened between India and Pakistan. It was a Pakistani side which, through third parties, contacted New Delhi and asked for the escalation and the ceasefire, and Trump had nothing to do with it, right? And the Indian leadership was very clear on that on numerous occasions. When it comes to Serbia and Kosovo, this is, how many times they did mention this topic that, well, Trump de-escalated between Serbia and Kosovo. What he de-escalated? Did Serbia launch a military operation to liberate basically Kosovo, historical Serbian territory, from terrorist regime there, Western-backed terrorist regime? Did Serbia launch actually military operation? No, this never happened, by the way. So what either Trump or the Lewitt is talking about, what they de-escalate, this is insane, really, really insane, isn't it? And then Lewitt also mentioned that Trump de-escalated or ended hostilities between Egypt and goodness me, man, what is the country south of Egypt after Sudan? Ethiopia. There was no war between Egypt and Ethiopia, by the way. There was no war between Egypt and Ethiopia. Tensions between the countries was high and still is high because of the dam that Ethiopia built on a Blue Nile, right? But countries never went to war against each other. So what Trump de-escalated? What these people are talking about, man? This is just insane. I don't know, man. And these people are representing U.S., major nuclear superpower. And you tell me if this is not tragic, and if this is not an extremely dangerous stuff. We would all laugh about it, right? If this was not this dangerous, by the way. This is insane. This is just freaking insane, man. I don't know. I just wanted to share with you, dear friends, this short video to once again highlight with whom we are dealing, by the way. This is crazy. Anyways, let's continue. And RIA Novosti is reporting, dear friends, that Russian air defense systems on duty intercepted 60 drones that was launched by a Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky to strike deep into Russian territory, obviously with assistance of NATO member states. I can give you some specifics on that. Okay. Thank you, Anya. Anya, my wife, is helping me tremendously. She's, she's a great producer of this show, I should say. What would I do without her constant support? So yes, you can see on your screen, dear friends, a reporter of RIA Novosti about work of Russian air defense systems. So 60 drones were intercepted overnight. 31 drones were shot down over the Belgorod region, 12 drones over the Rostov region, 5 drones over the Krasnodar region, 4 drones over the Black Sea, 3 drones over Voronezh region, 2 each over the Lipetsk and Tula, and 1 drone over the Azov Sea. Unfortunately, geography of these strikes is tremendous, isn't it? And these strikes could not be done, by the way. These strikes, we should always keep in mind that these long-range strikes could not be done without direct NATO involvement. Intelligence, targeting data, flight path is coming from NATO. Kiev regime on its own has no means to organize such operations. They just cannot do this. It's US and UK, first of all, that are orchestrating these long-range strikes. And I don't know how dare that Trump is still saying that this war is not his war, and US is not engaged in this war. I mean, how can anybody say that US is not engaged in this war against Russia? Maybe not openly, but obviously US is directly engaged because, yet again, weapons, money, intelligence, right? Flight path for long-range strikes and the targeting data, all is coming from mainly from US, right? And still, by the way, yesterday at some point Trump said that, well, US is not engaged in this war, but this and that. I mean, horrific, by the way. Horrific stuff is happening. And well, in that short clip, by the way, that I show you, when Trump was talking about commenting on Russia, his language was truly disturbing, isn't it? And I wonder if he was briefed, for example, that this morning Kiev regime, with assistance of NATO, committed yet another terrorist attack on Russian Federation, as a result of which commercial areas, by the way, was targeted in Veliki Kopani, which is a Kherson region, and at least 6 people were wounded. This is preliminary information, and during the day probably we will learn some more. But let me show you a video of this strike, dear friends. You can see clearly in a video that this is civilian area, by the way. No militaries around, no military personnel, no military vehicles. It's a commercial space, right? You can see shops there, right? It's a peaceful area, by the way. It was targeted, right? Potentially with HIMARS multi-launch rocket system that is provided by US, right? And whenever HIMARS is launched, targeting data and flight path is coming from US military store and US intelligence. And that's what they do, by the way. I mean, you tell me, let's watch it once again. Maybe I'm missing something here. But look at this. This happened this morning, by the way. I can see a store there, right? Some commercial space. Not a single person in a military uniform, not a single military vehicle, nothing. Is this a clear terrorist attack? Is this a clear terrorist attack committed by Zelensky's regime and its NATO backers? It is, isn't it? And obviously, no Western MSM will show you this footage, by the way. None. Mark my word, by the way, if you want, just check Western media. Would they report that this morning, as it is nothing, Kiev regime, in attempt to terrorize people, by the way, this is a terror attacks, right? They want to terrorize people, civilians. That's what they do. They cannot achieve success on the battlefield, and they are focused for a long time now terrorizing civilians, right? So this morning, they just launched yet another terror attacker, targeted civilian area, wounded 6 people. Yet again, this is preliminary data. During the day, we will learn some more. Hopefully, miraculously, no one would die as a result of this attack. But is this a terrorist attack committed by Kiev and the NATO? It is, isn't it? And what you will see on Western MSM, by the way, is a constant lies that Russia is targeting civilians, by the way. Anytime they talk about Russian strikes, they always say Russia is intentionally targeting civilians. Russia is intentionally targeting civilian institutions, civilian this, civilian that, which is total lie, right? Total lie, by the way. If Russia wanted to level the Kiev control territory, Russia could do this, right? And everything westwards from a line of contact would look like a Gaza Strip. But you go to Kiev, by the way, any evening, literally any evening, by the way, you pick any restaurant, you're going to go in, people are living their lives, by the way, right? You would not even realize that this country or quasi-state is engaged in a proxy war against Russia. You would have no idea about going in Odessa, by the way, right? Even Kharkov, by the way, city that is almost on the line of contact. Same story. Ordinary people, by the way, are living their difficult life, as it was the case even before special military operation, always since collapse of Soviet Union. People were trying to survive, right? Due to tremendous corruption in this quasi-state, ordinary people never really had a good life there. But exactly because of the corruption, there is a tremendous number of corrupt officials there, and they have families, right? Families, relatives, and whenever you go into restaurants, cafes, bars, clubs, and so on, some resorts, you're going to see exactly those people. And there are a lot of them, right? So if Russia is targeting civilian areas, by the way, how come that these corrupt officials and their family members are enjoying their lives, by the way, like it's nothing, right? Like nothing is happening. Unbelievable, man. And very same Western MSM that constantly gaslights people with these false narratives that Russia is doing this and that. Very that MSM will never ever report, by the way, about truly intentional strikes by Kiev regime and NATO on civilian areas in Russia. And yet again, mark my word, dear friends, if you see, you can check all media outlets in the West, literally all, and none of them will report about this strike, for example, or strikes that happened yesterday or day before yesterday, by the way, on civilians. It's true, isn't it? It's true, by the way. Let's continue, dear friends. Let's continue. We all know what Western MSM is. I mean, we all know, but just an additional reminder what is going on. Also, dear friends, when it comes to special military operation, we have a statement from Abdi Alaudin, head of Ahmad Special Forces. So with the liberation of Chisov Yar, and dear friends, yesterday I reported that Chisov Yar was liberated by Russian forces, and Defense Ministry confirmed this information. So with the liberation of Chisov Yar, the entire Ukrainian defense system in this sector has been broken open, said the commander of the Special Forces, Ahmad, and the deputy head of the main military political directorate of the Ministry of Defense, Lieutenant General Abdi Alaudin. And what he's basically saying is that Russian troops have now open operational space westwards from Chisov Yar, and obviously liberation of Chisov Yar gonna have a tremendous impact on the battlefield, on developments on the line of contact, and of course this will have a tremendous impact on the morale of the Kiev regime's forces that is already low, by the way, extremely low, isn't it? After all, otherwise there would not be hundreds of thousands of desertions, right, from Kiev regime's forces, and this number comes from Kiev itself, from Kiev itself, right? So if they say there is over 100,000 deserters or desertions, then the real number probably is in hundreds of thousands, at least 2, 3, 4 times more, right? So yes, Abdullah dinner is definitely on point, and Russian troops will definitely use this opportunity, this opening, to further develop their sectoral scale offensive operation on that side of DPR. And when it comes to Chisovyar, dear friends, we have this report too that on the final phase of Russian operation to liberate Chisovyar, Kiev regime's forces lost about 7,500 military personnel, as well as 11 tanks and 55 different type of armored vehicles, which is quite a big number, isn't it? Which is a quite a big number. Also, 160 field artillery pieces were neutralized, field artillery pieces and mortars. But what is main news in this report, that in this final phase of Russian offensive to liberate Chisovyar, Kiev regime lost more than 7,000 troops, which is in terms of this quasi-state Ukraine, it's 2 brigades, by the way. 2 brigades were eliminated just in final phases of this offensive. TASS news agency is also reporting, and dear friends, even though I published yesterday second news update, not that many members of our community have seen that video, walk and talk type of video, and therefore I will repeat some of the news that I have shared in that second update. So TASS news agency is reporting that Russian troops are just over a kilometer away from Konstantinovka, which is also, I will say, breakthrough. The distance between the Russian armed forces and Konstantinovka in some sectors of the front is just over a kilometer. This was told to a TASS news agency by Russian security agencies, and this is a big deal, by the way. Russian troops are on the outskirts of Konstantinovka. Russian troops are on the outskirts of Seversk, where Russian militaries achieved yet another breakthrough, by the way, on northern eastern side. Russian troops are on the outskirts of Kupiansk, and DRGs, Russian DRGs, already are operating in this city. Russian troops are also on the outskirts of Pokrovsk and Mirnograd, and DRGs are operating in these cities. Yesterday, reports were that Russian troops achieved yet another breakthrough, by the way, on the northern-western flank of Mirnograd. And as a result of this offensive operation, main supply and support line of the Kiev regime's garrison in Mirnograd was cut, which is also a tremendous, very important development, isn't it? So, well, the Russian troops are advancing, by the way. Russian troops are improving positions all along the front line, and I guess if someone that only is receiving news from Western MSM will, by chance, join us right now in this stream, that someone probably will be shocked to hear what I'm talking about, because Western MSM only reports about like stalemate, or either it's a stalemate or Russia is losing. That's Western propaganda, by the way. Either it's a stalemate and nothing is happening on line of content, or Russia is losing. But to hear that Russia is actually advancing and liberating more and more territories, I mean, this will be truly shocking to hear for people that, yet again, only receive news from freaking MSM in the West. TASS news agency is also reporting that Aidar assault company was destroyed near the Bisalovka in the Sumy region. Aidar is, dear friends, yet another Nazi terrorist organization on a Kiev-controlled territory that was actively used to terrorize civilians since 2014, alongside Azov, Kraken, and other terrorist Nazi formations. Well, this is good news, by the way, if entire company of this Aidar Nazi formation was neutralized in the Sumy direction. So let me give you details. An assault company of the 24th Separate Assault Battalion Aidar, recognized as a terrorist organization banned in the Russian Federation, was destroyed near Bisalovka in the Sumy region. Russian security services report about it to TASS, shared information with TASS news agency, and this is good news, by the way. This is definitely good news. No mercy. There can be no mercy towards Nazi and terrorist formations. They are not regular units, by the way. These are Nazi formations that were yet again terrorizing civilians since 2014 and killed thousands and thousands of civilians, killed and tortured, right? And there are tens of thousands of people, by the way, on Kiev controlled territory are still missing, and no one knows where those people are. And most likely those people, Russian speakers, by the way, were kidnapped, tortured, killed, and dropped somewhere in the forest. That's what these Nazi formations were doing. And significant number, thousands of them, probably are imprisoned on Kiev controlled territory. Also important news, dear friends, positive news that Nicaraguan authorities recognize the DPR, LPR, Kherson, and Zaporozhye regions as a part of Russia. Statement was made about it by co-presidents of the Republic, Daniel Ortega and Rosario Murillo, which is great, by the way. I'm happy about this decision of Nicaraguan leadership, and hopefully more countries will follow. More countries will follow, because you have to acknowledge objective reality, by the way. These regions are Russian federations, as Crimea is, right? And this has to be acknowledged, period. This has to be acknowledged and will be acknowledged by everybody. It's only a matter of time, and the longer this conflict continues, dear friends, longer globalists, neocons, and so on will prolong this proxy war against Russia, more and more territories in this former Soviet Republic of Ukraine, Soviet Socialist Republic of Ukraine, will be liberated. People will have opportunity there to express their opinions, right? They will have opportunity to have referendums and to decide, do they really want to be part of this creation of the Bolsheviks that Ukraine is, or maybe they want to go on their separate ways, either fully independent or to join Russian Federation, by the way. As this choice was given to people in Kherson, Zaporozhye, DPR, and LPR, and before that, in 2014, to people in Crimea, and they made their choice, and these regions are part of Russia now. And well, great decision on part of Nicaraguan leadership that they acknowledged objective reality. Great. And well, Ukraine again, by the way, Zelensky. And whenever you mention Zelensky, obviously, next sentence is about money and the weapons, right? It's always the case. And so the head of this Western-backed terrorist regime in Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, signed a law yesterday increasing spending on the security and defense sector for this year, by the way, by 412 billion hryvnias, local currency, which is 9.88 billion US dollars. And you guessed, dear friends, from where this money is coming from. Obviously from pockets of Western taxpayers, isn't it? Taxpayers from the collective West countries, US, Canada, European countries, and others, by the way, all collective West, right? And well, 9.8 billion is at this point, 9.8 billion don't really sound much, right? Based on appetites of the Kiev regime and based on amounts of funds that collective West already had allocated to prolong this, to orchestrate and then to prolong this proxy war against Russia. And I just remind you, dear friends, that a couple of days ago, new defense minister of Kiev regime, Shmigal, former prime minister, stated that for 2026 they need $120 billion. Just like that. They are demanding $120 billion, by the way, and I'm afraid they're going to receive these funds. I'm afraid Western so-called elites not going to ask nobody in their countries, right? They're not going to ask their fellow citizens, do they want to finance this Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky for another $120 billion? No. Western elites will just take this money and allocate to prolong this proxy war, right? And in addition, by the way, Zelensky was demanding another 60 billion, by the way, on top of 120, right? This regime's appetites are just, I I don't know, man. Something extraordinary. And one might ask question, how many billions they stole from these hundreds of billions that was allocated for prolongation of this proxy war. I wonder how many billions Zelensky and his criminal associates and their Western backers, these corrupt officials in the West that are lobbying this constant flow of money, have lost, have stole tens of billions, right, at this point. All of them are freaking filthy rich, and they definitely steal. I mean, I cannot know for sure, but most likely dozens of billions of dollars, by the way. And Trump very rarely is correct, but sometimes he does make statements that have are adequate. For example, he was asking that he would like to know where all the money went that U.S. has allocated for a prolongation of this proxy war during the Biden's administration. He is speculating with 350 billion number. I don't know, is it 350 billion or 200 billion or 150 billion? But when U.S. president himself is asking that he would like to know where this money went, then you know that, level of corruption and stealing is on just a next level, right, when it comes to control territory. Otherwise, Trump would not ask that question, because he would be briefed, by the way, isn't it? That, 20 billion went for this, or 50 billion for that, and this, But I guess no one really knows how much money was stolen. So yes, Western taxpayers should get ready to pay another 9.8 billion to Zelensky and from their pockets, and most likely another 120, or 180 billion dollars for next year. This is insane, by the way. I mean, what can I say, man? This is insane. And while this is happening, dear friends, Zelensky is calling for regime change in Russia. I mean, this is not a joke, by the way. He actually went on to say that, West have to orchestrate regime change in Russia, man. Unbelievable. If they're going to be a regime change anywhere, most likely it's going to be Ukraine, and Zelensky going to be removed from office, and very soon. But nevertheless, let's go through this news for some details. Ukraine's Vladimir Zelensky has called on Kiev's Western backers to push for regime change in Moscow in order to defend themselves from alleged Russian aggression. Ukrainian leader delivered his remarks during the conference marking the 50th anniversary of the Helsinki Accords, which emphasized equal and indivisible security for all. In an article published for the same occasion, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov argued that the West's betrayal of those core principles was a key factor to lead to their ongoing conflict. And Lavrov is definitely on point, isn't it? Because Helsinki Accords are about equal security for all. So no one's security can be above others, right? And when NATO, by the way, was expanding eastwards constantly since the collapse of Soviet Union, what they were doing, they were increasing their security on expense of Russian security, right? Am I correct? They were endangering Russia more and more and more, and eventually, with these irresponsible policies, world ended up in a situation that we all are right now. Let's continue. Nevertheless, there is a quote here. I believe Russia can be pushed to stop this war, but if the world does not aim to change the regime in Russia, that means even after the war ends, Moscow will still try to destabilize neighboring countries, Zelensky said in his virtual address. And yet again, dear friends, this is wet dreams, isn't it, of globalists and their proxy regime in Kiev, that they're going to destabilize Russia, they're going to conduct regime change or break up Russia in some 3, 4, 5, 15 different territories, and then control it and rob it, right? This is not happening, by the way. This is not happening. Russian President Vladimir Putin's ratings, by the way, are above 70 constantly. Society is in support of president in large, right? And there no one, maybe with the exception of one or two people here and there, no one is seeking no destabilization of the country and no regime changes and no revolutions and no nothing like that, right? So these psychopaths in Kiev and their Western masters should really, face the reality and come to their senses and begin de-escalating, because yet again, longer this conflict will continue, more pricey tug will be for the Kiev, for the Ukraine, and for the collective West. Pure and simple. That's how it's going to be. And yet again, if they're going to be regime change, by the way, anytime soon, anywhere, then it's going to be definitely Ukraine, and Zelensky going to be removed one way or another. It's matter of a couple of weeks, maximum, maybe months or two, right? But this is definitely going to happen. But meanwhile, by the way, Zelensky is sensing, of course, that his time is up, and he is backtracking now on the new law targeting anti-corruption agencies. So Ukraine's parliament yesterday has voted to restore the independence of the country's key anti-corruption agencies, NABU and SAPO. I guess Zelensky himself will sign this law, but I don't think this is going to help. I don't think this will stop operation, basically, that was launched by Washington and London to replace Zelensky. It's just too late. Western ruling class needed the reason, basically, to launch this operation to replace Zelensky, and they had it. They received that reason, right? When Zelensky targeted NABU and SAPO, so-called anti-corruption institutions that in reality were tools of the collective West to basically internally control Kiev regime. They have many other tools, obviously, but NABU and SAPO was their tools also, and they did not receive likely attack of Zelensky on these institutions, right? And I already reported, dear friends, in my previous updates that according to Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, there was a secret meeting in Alps, in Europe, by the way, in European mountains somewhere. I don't know. There was no specifics in French Alps or Swiss Alps or where, but there was a secret meeting between representatives of US and the UK, in which former head of Ukraine's general staff, Zaluzhny, was also participating, also current head of main intelligence directorate of the defense minister of Kiev regime, Budanov, and also, according to Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, in that meeting, Yermak was present too, head of Zelensky's office, by the way, and one might argue most powerful individual on Kiev-controlled territory right now, even more powerful or influential than Zelensky, because allegedly, according to many reports, Yermak is actually, quite good in manipulation, right? And he was manipulating with Zelensky easy. And so allegedly, agreement was reached during that meeting that Zelensky has to go, and Zaluzhny will replace him, right? And I guess because of this meeting, Zelensky now is preparing ground to sack Yermak. And reports about it are coming from Ukrainian journalists, by the way. For example, Anatoly Shary reported about it, that Zelensky is preparing to sack Yermak. So yet again, if there's going to be any regime change anywhere, by the way, anytime soon, it's going to be this creation of the Bolsheviks in the name of Ukraine, and Zelensky will go. If he is smart, he will resign and move to Israel right now, because I don't think anybody wants him in Europe or in US. But if he is really as dumb as it looks like, then probably he will try to stay in power as long as he can. And in that case, he might be eliminated during the coup d'etat, right? He will be removed from office forcefully, that's for sure, and Zaluzhny will replace him, right? And in that case, he might not even manage to escape. We will find out soon, like give it a month or two max. And meanwhile, dear friends, aide of Russian President Patrushev once again spoke about terrible situation in the Baltics and constant escalation from their NATO member states. And we have this report from TASS with the headline that West is hunting for Russian ships, militarizing Baltics. So the West has launched a hunt for Russian ships and is organizing provocations, and they're actively militarizing the Baltic Sea. Russian presidential aide and the head of the Maritime Board, Nikolai Patrushev, stated at the meeting of the Council for the Strategic Development of the Navy. And we have a quote from Patrushev: well aware that the bulk of foreign trade maritime cargo turnover goes through the Russian Northwest, our opponents are launching a hunt for Russian ships and the ships of third countries with our cargo. They are preparing and carrying out provocations, trying to unilaterally reverse the norms of international maritime law, and are also actively militarizing the Baltic Sea. Patrushev also stressed that the West has already begun to gradually implement planned provocative actions in various sections of the Arctic transport corridor in order to block the Baltic from the Russian commercial shipping. Brussels has launched the Baltic Sentry mission, which can be deployed at any time as a blockade mission, Patrushev said. And this is a very important statement, by the way. This is very important statements. I know collective West countries, leadership of collective West countries, are not really listening to warnings from Russia, to the statements of the Russian officials or public figures, but they should, because only so many times Moscow might offer warning. Only so many times, and after a certain point, if Western ruling class will refuse to listen and refuse to take in to pay attention to Russian concerns, then eventually, obviously, Western ruling class will go ahead with their next phase of escalation in this part of the world, in the Baltics. And well, Russia don't really have will not really have much option but to retaliate, and retaliate in such a scale that nobody will ever dare in a region to challenge Russia again. So you can guess what kind of scale that is going to be, right? We don't want this to happen, and I mean Russia, right? Russian society, Russian leadership. I mean, we clearly don't want no escalation, by the way. We are not seeking war with the NATO member states or with anybody. But if we have to fight, we will give a good, decent fight, by the way, right? And we will teach the lessons to everybody who will dare to challenge us. That's how it's going to be. That's how it was historically, and that's how it's going to be in the future too. That's it, man, right? And when it comes to Baltics, unfortunately, this is the one of the places where we might actually see direct clashes between NATO and Russian militaries. Unfortunately, risk of that is just too high. I think at this point, I mean, it seems to me that at this point, certain scale of direct clashes between NATO and Russian militaries are even inevitable, because trajectory of the collective West or the NATO in this area is such that eventually they will provoke direct clashes. By the way, this is what it is, and I guess many of you probably will agree with me. I mean, they have no reverse gear, isn't it? They're not going to stop, and at some point they will actually provoke Russian retaliation. Retaliation that will be on a scale, yet again, that will after which, let's say, nobody ever will try again to challenge Russia. So scale is going to be big. And your friends also reports that that Lukashenko and Putin will have a meeting. I believe a plane of Lukashenko already landed here in Russia. So Vladimir Putin and Alexander Lukashenko, presidents of Russian Federation and Belarus, will hold an informal meeting today to discuss bilateral relations and the international agenda, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov has stated. And this is important too, dear friends, because obviously two presidents will discuss potential military escalation from NATO that might happen after Trump's this ultimatum will expire. And obviously, the two leaders will have much to talk about, right? Much to discuss. Militaries of two countries probably already will be in a close cooperation to make sure that both countries and militaries and security services of the both countries are ready as much as possible to deal with whatever provocations we might face from the collective West. So very important meeting, I think, that is going to take place between Putin and Lukashenko. And also, dear friends, in first part of today's news segment, let me share with you this report from RT that disclosed documents link Russiagate hoax to a Soros, which is not really surprising. Let's be real here, but nevertheless interesting. So, George Soros's Open Society Foundation was involved in the Hillary Clinton's campaign's 2016 effort to falsely accuse Donald Trump of having ties to Russia, according to newly disclosed U.S. documents. The 29-page annex to John Durham's 2023 Special Counsel report was released by the Senate Judiciary Committee on Thursday, shortly after it was declassified. Their annex cites several likely authentic emails allegedly sent by Leonard Bernardo, Senior Vice President of Soros Open Society Foundation, throughout July 2016, which revealed details of the Clinton campaign's plan to falsely accuse Trump of Russia links and tie him to their alleged Democratic National Committee hack. And by the way, I mean, this is declassified information. I will not go into rest of the details here, but I think White House and current administration, due to a number of reasons, by the way, one of them being to divert attention of public from Epstein files and Epstein story towards something else. In this particular case, Russiagate, for example. I think White House and their administration will go all the way with this story, and some charges might actually occur. Some charges, and who knows, maybe even not just Soros Foundation will be hammered, but Clinton clan, Obama, and many other low key figures in all this story. But I think Hillary Clinton, and Barack Obama are on the line of fire now. And who knows what is going to happen, but they might actually be charged, by the way, right? So let's see what will happen. But it was a disgrace, by the way, what was happening in US in terms of this Russiagate. I mean, this was really a disgrace, isn't it? They were insulting not Trump at that point. They were insulting US, right? To say that president of US is an asset of other countries' secret services, that means that you are saying that US secret services are garbage, total garbage. US counterintelligence is a total garbage. US security services are total garbage because they failed to neutralize their foreign asset, right? But I guess they did not care, by the way. And I'm quite sure they don't care now, too. Democrats are clearly assets of globalists, and they truly don't care about US. My personal opinion, but they don't care about US citizens. They don't care about US future. They are globalists, and they are driven by whatever seeker ideology they have. Right? That's about it. Republicans are not much better, in yet again my personal opinion, but at least there are some people in among Republicans that seems to actually care about people of US and their US interests. This group is called America First now, isn't it? So I will say Democrats are definitely assets of globalists, and among Republicans there are serious groups that are more American centrist force. Share your take, dear friends. What you think? Is my reading of the big picture there is in this particular case correct or wrong? But that's how I see. Although, of course, it is also true, by the way, that among Republicans you will find a lot of allies of the globalists. All the neocons, by the way, are globalist allies, right? It is what it is. And dear friends, before I continue with the second part of the news segment, let me just highlight that, as I always do, dear friends, that this media project is completely subscriber funded. That is exists only as long as I have your support, dear friends. So if you want to see further development of this project, you can support my work with through several means, and all the links, by the way, are under this video in the description box and will be in a pinned comment after the stream. And during the streams, dear friends, I just want to highlight that during the streams, because I'm streaming on two platforms simultaneously, on YouTube and Rumble on my channels, you can use a super chat feature on Rumble, where my channel is monetized, and not just highlight any question or the comment, but at the same time support my work there. And also you can become premium subscriber on Rumble too. And that's been said, dear friends, let me continue now. Let me continue because there is quite a lot of news left. And what is next? Next is this report that is connected again with the statement of Lewitt, press secretary of the U.S. president, when she basically stated that Trump is not happy with the leadership of UK, France, and Canada due to their intent to recognize Palestinian state in upcoming General Assembly of UN in September. And yet again, let me share with you a short video of statements that Lewitt did made.
About a Palestinian state, the president expressed his displeasure and his disagreement with the leaders of France, the United Kingdom, and Canada. He feels as though that's rewarding Hamas at a time where Hamas is the true impediment to a ceasefire and to the release of all of the hostages.
So yes, Trump is displeased, not happy with his allies. And the only question I have, by the way, why US is not on the same page with very same France, UK, Canada, Portugal, I believe intends also to recognize the state of Palestine. So why US is not on the same page? That's the question that I have. Right? And many other people, by the way, I spoke several times about dramatic change that has happened with Trump, right? This person during the election campaign and at least first couple of months in office was a kind of different person, right? And then something happened, and well, he is now acting like I don't know. You tell me, dear friends, but it feels like he's been blackmailed big time, right? He's been blackmailed big time, and I think by Israeli lobby, Israeli secret services, by the way, first of all, and then by globalists too. Trump is being hijacked. He is compromised, by the way, in my personal opinion. Trump is compromised, and if this is true, then I think it is absolutely necessary. This 25th. There is a legal means, by the way, in U.S. to basically remove Trump from office, right, and allow J.D. Vance to take over. If Trump is compromised, and it looks like this is the case, then well, U.S. is in a deep trouble, right, and world is in a deep trouble, by the way. And I really hope there will be enough patriot forces in the U.S., right? In U.S. intelligence services, in U.S. Political class that will take the action, no matter how popular Trump might still be among Republican supporters. If this person is compromised, and it does looks like this is the case, then he have to be removed from the office, because it's just too dangerous for U.S. and for rest of the world, right? So let's see. I mean, I really hope that if Trump is compromised, then they will be capable enough patriotic forces in the U.S. that will use all the legal means. By the way, I'm talking about legal means exclusively. They will use all the legal means that actually exist to remove this compromised president from their office and allow vice president to lead the country. Hopefully this will happen, by the way, because Trump is not acting like everybody was expecting, by the way, and this is not normal. This is not okay, right? He is clearly compromised. My personal take on the matter. And it is unfortunate that U.S. is not on the same page with UK, France, Canada, and other countries, by the way, that want to recognize statehood of Palestine, or already did recognize statehood of Palestine, as Moscow did in mid-80s, by the way, of last century, right? And it is unfortunate that U.S. is actually supporting all the tremendous crimes that Netanyahu's regime is committing against the civilians in Palestine. This is definitely sad, dark page of U.S.'s history, for sure, and world's history, actually. What Israel is doing, by the way, is a shame on the whole of humanity, for sure. How we ever allow this to happen? World, right? I don't know. We all should be shamed that we allow this tragedy to happen and to further develop. You know my take on the situation, by the way. If I continue, I will go emotional, and Let's continue with some other news, and on topic of Israel again, by the way. I mean, I will go emotional eventually, because whenever I talk about what Israel does, by the way, you cannot stay calm. It's not possible, because they are committing genocide. They are killing tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of civilians, by the way. They already killed tens of thousands of children, right? These fascists, Israeli fascists, by the way, this fascist regime there, and fascist state. So Netanyahu is stating now that they're gonna go ahead with a voluntary, as they call it, relocation of thousands of Palestinians from Gaza within weeks, if no hostage deal is reached soon. Ynet is reporting about it, and this criminal activity from Netanyahu is obviously part of their policies, right? And Netanyahu is authorizing all these crimes. According to Ynet or Ynet, to please Ben-Gvir and that kind of and Smotrich and that kind of despicable individuals without support of which Netanyahu would not be able to maintain his position as a prime minister. But I think this is a simplification of their situation. I think entire government of Israel is a criminal elements, fascists, right? And I think a majority of Israelis are Nazis, by the way, fascists, right? They don't treat other people as equal. They've been indoctrinated in sickening ideology of supremacy, and I believe only way to stop this tragedy is to world community get engaged in this whole situation, to demand from Israel immediate end of hostilities, immediate withdrawal of forces from occupied territories, immediate withdrawal of settlers from occupied territories, and demilitarization and denazification. Israel has to agree on that. Otherwise, world community then has to go ahead with military action against Israel. This is the only way we can stop this barbarism, by the way, this tremendous crimes that Israel is committing. On their own, they're not going to stop. We all know this, right? And according to this Ynet, Netanyahu's regime allegedly already reached agreement with the 5 nations that are willing to absorb refugees from Gaza. So they're going ahead with their ethnic cleansing, by the way. They are genociding people, and whoever will survive will be forced out of Gaza Strip. And if they are allowed to do this, then shortly after they will do very same in the West Bank. Then they will turn their attention to southern Lebanon, right? And step by step, they will terrorize and genocide their people of all the neighboring countries. That's what they're going to do. So only way to stop this, in my personal opinion, is the world community to finally come to the senses, have a gathering, issue ultimatum to Israel. We all know what they have to do. If they agree, okay, political means, political resolution will be better option, obviously. But if Israel will ignore, then world community have to take a military action and demilitarize and denazify this fascist regime, as it was done with the Nazi Germany, by the way. Right? It is what it is. And with allies of the Nazi Germany during their Second World War. Also, I think interesting, important report that Sweden calls on EU to suspend the trade deal with Israel. Economic pressure on Israel must increase. Israel government must allow unrestricted humanitarian aid in Gaza, Prime Minister Christensen stated. And rare occasions when I have to agree with the representative of the European, one of the European regimes, in this particular case from Sweden. Obviously, if any countries have any leverage on Israel, it's the countries that have a cooperation with Israel in terms of business, in terms of finances, in terms of weapon supplies, right? And these countries are Western countries, US and the European states, mainly. Not just them, but mainly Israel is dependent on support, financial, economical, and military support from US and from European states. And definitely, if EU will go ahead with some economical pressure on Israel, that might actually force this fascist regime there to rethink their policies. It might work, it might not, but maybe it will. So let's see, by the way, let's see how far this initiative from Sweden will go. But this is definitely one of the ways that European states should act, right, and long time ago. It's better now than never, but these kind of steps should be taken couple of weeks after Israel launched its military operation, when it is become clear that they are not about neutralizing Hamas, they are about genociding Palestinians, forcing survivors out of the region, and then annexing the territory. It was obvious from the beginning, by the way, isn't it? And that's why I was saying, you remember, isn't it? I was saying from the very, very beginning that Israel most likely will try to implement Karabakh scenario in the Gaza Strip, which means Israel will force out all the survivors from the region and then will take control, annex the region, as this happened in case of Nagorno-Karabakh. Just a couple of years ago, when Azerbaijani forces entered their territory, kill as many people as they could, and they forced arrest over 100,000, by the way, about 200,000 people were Armenians, by the way, were forced to flee their homes and are now refugees in Armenia and in a number of other countries, right? And that's exactly what is happening. Israel is implementing similar scenario in the Gaza Strip. And if I knew that from the beginning, then how come that European or Western leadership didn't know, or their think tanks that are providing them with the information? Of course they knew, but they didn't care. And now I guess internal pressure from society is on such a level that I guess they are no longer capable of ignoring this pressure. And I guess that's why lately number of European states are actually talking about these criminal actions of the Israel, and they're taking some steps to confront Israel, right? Yet again, I mean, let's see how effective collective West countries will be, but unfortunately, I'm not an optimistic. I think only way to stop these tremendous crimes that Israel is committing is international community, mainly outside of the collective West, because collective West is fairly controlled by Zionists. World community, emerging multipolar world, basically should get together, issue their ultimatum to Israeli regime. If they listen. If not, then military action should be taken, and this fascist Israeli state should be demilitarized and then denazified. I think that's the only way, by the way. RIA Novosti is also reporting that, well, as I mentioned yesterday, dear friends, delegation from new regime in Syria is in Moscow, foreign minister, defense minister, and a number of other elements. And there was a meeting between the Russian foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, and the so-called foreign minister of new regime in Damascus. Also, there was a meeting between the Russian defense minister, Belousov, and the so-called defense minister of Damascus regime. And, well, unfortunately, towards the end of the day, yesterday, media began reporting that Russian president even spared the time and received this so-called delegation from Syria. I don't like this, by the way. I spoke about it in yesterday's second update. I don't like this. I don't think Moscow should treat these representatives of this regime in Damascus as someone that deserve any respect. But same time, I do understand why would Moscow have some dialogue with them, or at least some contacts. First of all, because there is Russian bases in Syria, by the way, and obviously Russian president and all the other officials are concerned about the safety of the Russian military personnel. And on that matter, I will just ask her why for God's sake our bases are still there in Syria. I mean, what for? Now, some might say to protect civilians from being genocide by this terrorist regime in Damascus. That's what they are, by the way, terrorist regime. Even if Putin will disagree with me, I don't care. I mean, these are terrorists, by the way, right? Sharia and the rest of their elements there. And I can see that Moscow is forced to deal with these elements, right? Because of the existence of Russian bases in Syria. But yet again, I mean, why we did not withdraw these bases until now? Why? I mean, just why? I don't know what our bases are accomplishing being stationed there. What Russian militaries are accomplishing. Yes, they played a big role to save thousands of Christians and Alawites and Druze people when they've been attacked by this terrorist regime in Damascus just like 2 months ago. You remember the story, isn't it? Thousands of ethnic and religious minorities flee to Russian bases, and Russian militaries protect them. And well, that was a big deal, obviously. But nevertheless, is that a reason that we are there? I don't know. It's a noble stuff what Russian militaries did. No arguments on that. No arguing on that. Of course, Russian military saved thousands and thousands of people from ethnic and religious minorities there. But you know, there should be some other means to protect ethnic minorities. Russian militaries are not peacekeepers there, right? Anyways, I'm just expressing my frustration with this situation. Maybe I don't understand something, and probably that is the case, by the way. Let's be real here. My knowledge is based on open sources and the policies of the Russian leadership based on all the information that exists. First of all, classified one that I would never know, right? So therefore, probably there is very important reasons why Russian bases are still there in Syria, but it would be good if public will receive some proper explanation. You know, we don't ask for no like specifics, but at least some decent explanation has to be given. By the way, why on earth our bases are still there? What for? And why Russian leadership is talking to those freaking terrorists that Russian troops were fighting, by the way, just a couple of months ago? I don't know. Let's continue, dear friends. There are a couple of more news, sir, and then I will join community chat. So there was a Chinese Navy diesel-electric submarine, by the way, has arrived in the Russian port of Vladivostok to participate in their upcoming Joint Sea 2025 exercises, taking part from August 1st to August 5. And well done. Good, by the way. I mean, I like this news. Some news that I don't like and don't really understand. And there is some news that, I do like because I do understand a little better, I guess. And so it is great that Russian and Chinese militaries are further increasing their cooperation, and there is constant military exercises. This definitely increases safety of both countries and also understanding between their countries, right? So very important developments. And also, by the way, Russia-Chinese relationships are sending a strong message to the rest of the world, especially to extremely hostile Western world, that, well, it would be better if we will be left alone, right? And I mean, emerging multipolar world, by the way. I mean, collective West, if they want to, they can stay separate. They can build their own, I don't know, whatever they want to build, their own world, illusionary world, but I mean, rest of the world should be left alone, by the way, and cooperation, increased cooperation, political, economical, military cooperation among the leading states when it comes to this emerging multipolar world is tremendously important. And I'm not just talking about Russia-China relationships, but also Russia-India relationships, relationships between Russia and Indonesia, Russia and South Africa, Russia and Brazil, and many, many others, by the way, Russia and Iran, right? And so yes, it's all good, by the way. Exercises between Russian and Chinese Navy. My hope is that despite all the attempts to to create divisions inside their BRICS member states and inside their emerging multipolar world, all the attempts from their collective West, hopefully they will fail. Hopefully they will fail, and BRICS will prevail, multipolar world will prevail, because I think multipolar world will be much more just for this for all the nations than what we have seen in past decades and decades when West was dominating without any challenge whatsoever, right? A few more news, dear friends. Russian president had a meeting with Laotian president Litecoin in Kremlin. Of course, presidents exchange opinions about relationships between the countries. They spoke about prospects of further improvement of the relationships, and I saw on some pages, by the way, reports that Russia is planning to invest in a transport communication when it comes to Laos, and also Russia will play some positive role to build a trade route from Laos then through Vietnam, by the way, which means Russia might invest in Vietnamese ports too, because Laos itself is a landlocked, right? So Russia might invest in infrastructure, transport infrastructure inside the Laos, then in Vietnam, in the port infrastructure, for example, so that a new trade route will be opened from Laos through Vietnam and towards Russian Vladivostok port city, right? So great deal, by the way. If this will work, of course, all the countries, by the way, not just Russia, Laos, and Vietnam, but all the countries in between will benefit from this new trade router. I mean, so much so for isolated country, isn't it? That allegedly Russia is, if you listen too much to Western MSM. But you know, RT is also reporting that India plans to build largest hydropower plant in Kashmir, and this will cause additional tensions between India and Pakistan. I think, I mean, most likely this is going to be the case. So India plans to build what will be the largest hydroelectric power plant in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. Their NDTV website reported on Thursday their 1,856 megawatt Sawalkote hydroelectric project on the Chenab River is expected to cost about 2.6 billion US dollars and will be built without seeking clearance from the Pakistan, condition that exists in the Indus Water Treaty that India suspended in April. Signed in 1960 under the auspices of the World Bank and the IWT, governs the signed in 1960 under the auspices of the World Bank, the IWT, or Indus Water Treaty, governs the sharing of the Indus River system between the two regional arch rivals. It will be held in abeyance until Pakistan credibly and irrevocably abjures its support for cross-border terrorism. Indian Foreign Minister Vikram Misri said immediately after the terror attack in April in Jammu and Kashmir that killed 26 people, and after which we see military hostilities, direct military clashes between India and Pakistan. Islamabad, which India blamed for the attack, has denied having any role in it. Well, and the rest is history. But yes, important news, obviously. India does need electricity, by the way, as any other country, for its people, for its economy. And I think has every right to do whatever it wants on its own territory, build a power plant or whatever. But same time, yes, I mean, Probably none of us would, not just none of us, but I mean, nobody wants to see further escalation between India and Pakistan, and hopefully this project or anything else, by the way, would not cause further escalation, because relationships between New Delhi and Islamabad are already as tense as it can be, right? And both countries are nuclear countries, by the way, and should never get engaged militarily against each other. RT, meanwhile, is reporting to stay on the topic of economics and politics, which is always goes together. A French president, by the way, Emmanuel Macron, has criticized the newly signed EU-US trade deal. After many other politicians in EU, well, it is turn for Macron to say some stuff. So French President Emmanuel Macron has criticized the newly signed EU-US trade deal, stating that the bloc was not feared enough during the negotiations, according to sources cited by the Euro CTV. The agreement concluded on a Sunday during the talks between US President Donald Trump and the European Commission head Ursula von der Leyen. And we know what the conditions of that agreement is, by the way, which is not really a deal, but capitulation of the Brussels before Washington's demands, right? Before Washington. And that's how the world sees this. And that's how even European, tremendously incompetent, inadequate European politicians see this, right? And Macron is talking about it. And dear friends, you know what is also interesting, that this alleged deal that was agreed between Washington and Brussels is actually a fake deal. It's a deal that cannot be fulfilled. Not a slightest chance, by the way, that deal will be fulfilled. And let me give you some details on that. Surprisingly, maybe, but not really that many media outlets pay close attention to details of that so-called agreement or the deal, which just cannot be implemented due to some objective reasons. And there is a report about this on Interfax news agency. And let's go for details here. During the trade talk with the US authorities, US President Donald Trump urged them to stop purchasing energy from Russia and buy liquefied natural gas only from the US. Politico reported on Thursday, citing sources, and well, nothing extraordinary here. Trump was very vocal, even during his first presidency, that he don't want Europeans to buy Russian energy, gas or oil or anything really. And he constantly brags about harming Russian energy sector and harming Nord Stream project, right? So nothing new there, but what is interesting, while demanding from you to buy LNG, for example, only from US, Washington is actually sidelining its allies, like Qatar and Australia, isn't it? Last time I checked, it was Australia and Qatar that was leading countries in LNG exports, right? And now Trump is demanding from Europe not just not to buy Russian LNG, but also not to buy LNG from Qatar and Australia. Okay. It would not work, but okay, let's continue. The publication recalls that the last weekend, Trump met with the head of European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, with the aim of reaching a trade agreement with the EU. The main task, number one, of the president was to convince Europe to stop buying Russian energy resources and buy them from the United States. The publication reports, citing unnamed American officials. And the Europeans agreed. This is such a serious change in the situation and an obligation to buy from America. The portal's interlocutor continued. Initially, according to the publication, Trump insisted on commitments from the European Union to purchase US energy resources in the amount of $1 trillion, by the way, for his entire presidential term in the White House. However, the parties then settled on the amount of $750 billion, that is $250 billion per year for the purchase of the US LNG, the sources said. And we knew about this, right? This is nothing new or extraordinary. We knew about some details of this project, but most interesting starts now, by the way. However, the publication notes that their figures are exaggerated and unrealistic. To reach such a sum, the US would have to redirect all of its energy exports to the EU and somehow then achieve a 50% increase in supplies on top of the current level of their exports, right? Which is, not happening, right? It's not possible. It's just not possible. But on top of that, in addition, Politico draws attention to the fact that EU does not have the necessary infrastructure to receive such a volume of American LNG. In addition, the European Union would have to triple the volume of imports from the United States, refuse other foreign suppliers, including those supplying goods at the lower prices. Thus, the publication concludes Trump is putting transatlantic rapprochement at risk, including the LNG trade, which in 2024 reached 20.3 billion and accounted for 53% of all American LNG exports. And this is also interesting, dear friends, isn't it? In 2024, US exported to EU LNG for 20.3 billion, which was 53% of overall US LNG exports, right? So if US will send all of its LNG, by the way, to EU, volume in sum will be like $45 billion. So how US gonna triple or quadruple the volumes of the production of the LNG then in next 3 years, so that EU will be forced to buy LNG from US for 250 billion, by the way, every single year. I mean, this is not possible, isn't it? This is just not possible. So you tell me, dear friends, what kind of deal was signed up between Washington and Brussels? US is not able to send LNG worth 250 billion. There is not even close, by the way, right? Not even close. To reach such levels, US have to quadruple its LNG production, which is not going to happen anytime soon or ever, right? On the other hand, EU is not capable of receiving LNG, such a volume of LNG for like 250 billion, by the way. I mean, where are they going to store this volume of gas, right? In air? So you tell me, dear friends, what they signed up for? What is this deal is all about? It's total freaking nonsense, right? I mean, really nonsense, by the way. I don't know. I don't get it, by the way. And that's why I'm saying, by the way, we are living in I don't know, man, in crazy times. Because, leadership of US, leadership of EU is getting together, talking about some very serious stuff, then are signing up for deals, then bragging about this deal again, and it only takes like a day or two, and everybody is beginning to realize that these people are freaking clowns. And deal that they were bragging about is freaking nonsense, right? Insanity, by the way. This is really crazy. To continue, dear friends, just a couple of more news, and that's it for this news segment. So RT is reporting that Trump finalized his decision to impose 50% tariffs on Brazil from August 1st. And, it is unfortunate. But, we knew this was coming, and I guess Brazil will retaliate soon. Either today or tomorrow, we will hear how Brazil will respond on this hostile step from United States. And also, dear friends, I think interesting news that German businesses are criticizing US-EU trade deal too, not just politicians there in Germany or other EU member states. But yet again, they should all understand that this deal is a freaking nonsense. So they should not pay much attention to it, really, right? It's just not a realistic agreement. It cannot be fulfilled, cannot be done, period. But nevertheless, many people in EU are upset that Brussels basically capitulated before Washington, right, and agreed on all the crazy demands that Trump come up with, even if they knew perfectly well that this agreement cannot be fulfilled, right, realized. But nevertheless, well, businesses also now are complaining, and we have some statistics, by the way, that more than 76% of German small and medium-sized enterprises call the trade agreement reached by the US and the EU a serious blow. Bild reported on Thursday, citing a survey by German Association of Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises. According to the survey of over 1,000 organizations, more than 76% of them believe that the trade deal is a serious blow, and they expect their crisis in the German economy to worsen. And they have a reason for that, because even if US is not capable of sending LNG for 250 billion, well, US will most likely demand that EU will buy whatever LNG US can sell, right? And to cut any cooperation with Russian energy companies. And that means that energy will become ever more expensive for European businesses, right? And that's from where their concern is coming from, I guess, because higher the energy cost, higher the production of everything, right? And lowers your competitiveness, right? So this 76% of businesses definitely have a reason to be concerned, and they have reason to expect that the crisis in the German economy will further worsen. Same time, more than 31% of participants said that the US tariffs will have a noticeable impact. So it's not just the energy, but also tariffs we should keep in mind, by the way, this 15% tariffs. So 31% of participants said that US tariffs will have a noticeable impact and did not rule out their bankruptcy. So, 31% is quite a lot, isn't it? That is even considering bankruptcy due to all their obstacles that they're going to face. More than 77% of respondents believe that the EU was weak in the negotiations with the US President Donald Trump, and this is true, of course. But as I said yesterday during the second update, what about other 23%? Do they think that Ursula was tough with Trump? What the hell is wrong with those people, man? I don't know. But this 77% definitely is on a point, man. This was a capitulation. This was a pure capitulation of Brussels before Washington. That's how much they want US to keep US in this proxy war against Russia, by the way. They are willing to pay any price. They, globalists and globalist-controlled regimes in Europe, by the way. They are willing to pay any price in order to keep US in this proxy war against Russia that globalists are waging. Globalists and their neocon allies in US. But anyways, let's end the news segment of this stream. Almost 2 hours, by the way. News segment alone. Wow, that's quite something, isn't it? And dear friends, let me join community chat now. Let me join community chat. I will react on a couple of questions, dear friends. As you can imagine, 2-hour work on air is a quite exhausting stuff. And after this stream, I have to then continue to begin preparation of the next update, right? And at the same time, I have to make at least a few short videos from this live stream and publish those videos. And same time, I have to update Telegram and Twitter X page and Holy moly, man. But, no complaints, by the way. I love to work in this field of news and political commentary and to be useful for community, and hopefully I am. Hopefully my work is good enough, informative and interesting. And I'm scrolling now. Chat, dear friends. I guess there was no super chat on Rumble. So therefore, was there a super chat on Rumble? Nothing. Well, unfortunate, but what can I do about it? Let's. Yes, I did. I did say that. Many thanks to Robert and to Nathan for their donations through PayPal. I did spoke about it earlier in the video. And I'm scrolling now. Let's see if I will spot questions. I just noticed a question. I see. I see a question from Nikos. Levan, have you seen John Mearsheimer's interview with the Tucker? I can't stand Mearsheimer anymore. He always underestimates others while overestimates the US, and he wants to contain China. Uh, I have seen interview, by the way, parts of it. No, I didn't not have time to watch all of it, but I watched significant part of it. I might finish watching that interview today or on the weekends. But I am familiar what you are talking about. Interview was published just like day before yesterday, these days, by the way. And I can see, I can understand your assumptions in regards to Mearsheimer's position. Yes, he's like many other experts in the West, by the way, are quite hostile towards China and are exaggerating capabilities of their collective West and US in particular. In this case, yes, I understand what you are talking about. There is no disagreements here between our takes, but nevertheless, by the way, I think Mearsheimer, we might disagree with him in certain topics. It's all good, right? It's okay. By the way, we don't have to agree with each other on everything, right? Or on anything at all. It's all good. But nevertheless, I think Mearsheimer is playing a very big role, by the way, to increase level of knowledge of the public worldwide, world community. He is one of the leading experts, in my personal opinion, leading voices of reason, I will say. Even if we disagree on some of his takes, by the way, he's definitely high level intellectual, and does a great deal of work, by the way, to increase knowledge of the community worldwide. And I'm grateful for that, by the way. I have no, yet again, I'm not going to go and criticize Mearsheimer for some positions that I might disagree with him. He is doing a great service to this world, by the way. I'm quite sure about it. Same can be said, by the way, about Jeffrey Sachs. He plays, very important role to increase knowledge of the people and awareness of the people worldwide. And even if we disagree on some points with him or with any other experts, well, we should acknowledge that these people are doing great service to the community, to the world community. And I can continue, by the way. There are many other voices of reason, isn't it? in this particular case from the collective West, let's say. Although it's not just collective West, by the way, there are many voices of reason worldwide. But and these people, Jeffrey Sachs, Meisheimer, and their others, they are maybe in the spotlight because they are from the West, right? And it is kind of refreshing when you see Westerner is talking stuff that actually makes sense, right? Westerner, I mean, from Western elites. And these people are from Western elites, by the way, right? These are not ordinary people like we are. These are representatives of the Western elites, right? That went on their separate way, right? Break away from their major part of these elites and are now pushing for their own direction. And so, yes, maybe they are in the spotlight, but obviously there are many other intellectuals from this world that are doing great service to the community. But on the point that Meisheimer is has some issues with China and overestimates U.S. capability and underestimates capabilities of some other countries. Yes, but nevertheless, you know, we are lucky, by the way, that we have many people among our expert community that are actually providing great deal of information and the knowledge to this world. So I'm grateful for that. I'm scrolling, dear friends, now. Let's see if I spot a question. Wow, time is flying, by the way. I didn't expect that new segment would be like 2 hours long, man. Wow. Dear friends, my apologies if I miss your question. I'm just scrolling fast. I see no capital Q, by the way. Maybe I missed some, but I'm scrolling. I'm happy to see communication, by the way. Oh, I spot capital Q. Question from Nidish Kumar, and what I was saying is that I'm happy to see this active exchange of opinion between members of our community. It's great when chat is active and community is engaged. It's great to see. I'm grateful to you, dear friends, for being here. And Nidish Kumar is asking, do you think Russia meeting with Syrian new government because of Chechen and their Dagestani people getting involved there? You mean there are Chechen and people from Chechnya and Dagestan that was fighting alongside their HTC and now might be seen as a traitor to Russia. If you mean that, well, Russia was always considering individuals that left Russia to join terrorist organizations as a threat, and one of the key reasons, not only one, but one of the key reasons why Russia get engaged in Syria in the first place was to neutralize terrorist band formations that were based basically on elements from either Russia or other former Soviet republics, because they were causing threat, right? They've been decimated big time, and currently I don't think they are that much influential groups left from the citizens of former Soviet republics. So I don't know. This may be one of the reasons why Moscow is engaged with the Damascus regime, to make sure that this element's not gonna cause trouble, and to make sure that maybe Damascus will, this new regime will take care of those elements, will arrest them, and then send them to Russia so that they will be prosecuted for their crimes. Might this happen? Yes, this can happen. After all, regime in Damascus most likely needs any assistance it can get to normalize the situation in the country, right? And Russia definitely can assist in that. But again, we should keep in mind we are talking about HTC, by the way, which is a HTC regime, right? This is not some political figures that went rogue and conducted a coup d'etat or revolution or something. We are talking about terrorists, right? Terrorist organizations that committed numerous crimes against humanity. And I don't believe in whitewashing of the terrorists. Once terrorist is always a terrorist, in my personal opinion, right? And terrorists are committing crimes that cannot be forgiven or forgotten, period. And that's why I have an issue, by the way, right, with this Damascus regime and with their contacts between Moscow and Damascus. Although, same time, I do understand perfectly well that there is a Russian military basis, by the way, in Syria, and obviously Russian leadership has to make sure that Russian personnel is safe there, right? Not going to be attacked regularly by all sorts of terrorist organizations that are running around Syria nowadays. So, yes, there is a reasons why Moscow is communicating with Damascus, but my personal opinion is that it would be better if Russia will withdraw military bases and just forget about existence of that quasi-state at least until people, locals, will actually regain control over their country, over their destiny, and implement a decent government. Then, okay, let's cooperate. But until then, just let's withdraw bases, by the way, and just forget about it. That's my take on the situation. Donzugar is commenting. You ask why is the U.S. not on the same page? The U.S. government is captured by Israel through bribery, blackmail, and murder. Their people are anti-Israel, but their politicians are crooks. Thank you for your comment, Donzugar. And I mean, there is many reasons. I think many reasons to agree with your take, and I also think that U.S. political class being hijacked, by the way, blackmailed, bribed, hijacked, and I really believe that Trump is being compromised. Trump is compromised, by the way. I mean, I did not have much expectations from Trump, right, or about Trump, but clearly there is a tremendous difference between Trump during the election campaign, or even first couple of months of his second term, and Trump now. It's like two different people, by the way, right? And this is not normal. This is just not normal, by the way. He's been compromised. His take on Epstein's story is, he's killing himself. It's a political suicide what he is doing, right? And same time, do it through his take and take of administration. It seems like a Republican Party is committing political suicide. What the hell? Why is that? Trump is compromised, by the way. I'm quite sure about it. I cannot say that I'm 110% sure that Trump is compromised and this and that, because I just don't know all the details. But I think he's compromised and have to be removed from office, by the way. It's a duty of U.S. Politicians, U.S. leadership, to remove from office of president compromised element. And dear friends, if I may, I will end this stream now. Truly grateful, dear friends, for joining this stream, for being here, for your attention. I just saw a question, by the way. Where it is? Damn. I just saw a question. It was not for me, by the way. It was not for me. Sorry. Nidish Kumar is also commenting. A lot of Chechens and Uyghurs are involved in attacks on Druze. Uyghurs, yes. You know what I was saying a long time now, isn't it? That Western, collective West, U.S. Secret Services, British Secret Services, Turkish Secret Services were training thousands and thousands of Uyghurs from China in Idlib province, right? And they were training them eventually to transfer to Central Asian republics once they will destabilize those republics, and then use certain uncontrolled territories on the border with China to infiltrate China with the Uyghurs or people from Central Asian republics that are Turkic speaking, right? There is only Tajikistan, by the way, in Central Asia that is not Turkic speaking nation. Rest is all Turkic speaking, right? Chechen people are not Turkic speaking, by the way. On Caucasus, there are peoples that are Turkic speaking, and there are peoples that are not, right? And Chechens are not Turkic speaking people. And when it comes to numbers, obviously, I don't know how many выходцы. How you say выходцы, by the way? Just give me a second. Well, I don't know how many people from Chechen Republic are actually in members of the terrorist organizations in Syria now. Probably there are some number, right? Because there was a quite significant influence of a fight of groups, terrorist groups that were built based on people that were from Chechnya in ISIS, by the way, right? And many leaders of the ISIS terrorist organization were Chechens themselves, right? So they should be a certain number of Chechens or no people from Northern Caucasus region, let's say, right, among terrorist groups in Syria, but I'm not sure that their number is in thousands, maybe in hundreds, maybe, but I don't think their numbers are in thousands. But when it comes to Uyghurs, their number is definitely in thousands, by the way. Their numbers are definitely in thousands. And I'm not disagree with you, Nidish. Maybe one of the reasons why this contact is happening between Moscow and Damascus is to make sure that these terrorist groups that are operating in Syria are not gonna pose threat to Russia or to Central Asian republics, right? So it's a complex stuff. Obviously, Moscow has reasons to be engaged in this talks. I don't think Putin is happy to have to talk to those people, but he's a statesman, right? And when you are a statesman, you have to talk with the people that you might even despise, but you are a statesman, right? You have to do what is right for your people, for your nation, for safety of the nation and the country, and that's what Putin does, right? That's why I said, by the way, that just because I don't understand something or I don't like something does not mean that I am correct and others are wrong. It just means that I don't understand something, right? Because my understanding is based on information from open sources, and that is not really much information compared to what volume of knowledge politicians, I mean, top-level politicians or officials have, right? Because they have access to all the classified information that exists. Man. So obviously, their judgment is much more complex than ours. But yes, topic that you highlight definitely can be one of the reasons. Plus, existence of Russian military bases in Syria. Plus, by the way, Turkey. Plus, Israel. Relationships between Turkey and Israel and potential clash between the two in I don't know, sometime in the future. Plus overall situation in the region, by the way, and I mean, it's a complex stuff, isn't it? As it is always with the Middle East or basically any other region in this world. And dear friends, let me end this live stream on that. Thank you very much for your attention, dear friends, for your support once again. Many thanks to Nathan and Robert for support, for donations through PayPal. Truly grateful, dear friends. Have a wonderful day, great upcoming weekend, and take care. Thank you very much.